to the Business of Aesthetics Summit on scaling the modern plastic surgery practice, business, branding, and beyond. I am Lester, your host for tonight's webinar. This empowering discussion is designed to help you navigate challenges, leverage opportunities, and build a thriving career in aesthetics. Welcome everyone, we're thrilled to have you with us today. This session is all about giving you forward-thinking strategies to scale and future-proof your practice, from branding and digital presence to operations, staffing, and patient experience. We'll cover the full spectrum of what it takes to stand out, grow sustainably, and thrive in today's competitive market. So by the end of this summit, you'll walk away with actionable ideas to attract ideal patients, boost visibility, and lead your practice with confidence in a high-demand environment. This event is proudly sponsored by Equa Marketing, a leader in helping practices grow by bringing in new patients at the lowest possible cost. Equa clients rank for hundreds of keywords among the top 10 clients on Google, and they've been doing this for nearly 2 decades. If you ever wondered how to get found online, they're the team to talk to. As a gift for attending this session, Equa is offering a free 60-minute marketing strategy meeting for everyone here tonight. You can scan the QR code on your screen or go to this link in the chat to grab your free session. Again, appointments will fill quickly, so don't wait too long to book. Again, this is a complimentary strategy session by the sponsors of this event. Before we dive into today's discussion, I would like to introduce someone very special, and that is Naren Arulrajah. Naren is the founder of the Business of Aesthetics community, the CEO of Equa Marketing, and someone who spent over 18 years helping aesthetic practices grow. Naren, I'd love you to join us throughout tonight's session and chime in with your thoughts as we go. To start off, would you mind saying a few words?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I want to thank everyone here. We created this community, the Business of Aesthetics community, almost 5 years ago, and many of our members happen to be plastic surgeons and people who run plastic surgery practices. So really appreciate all of you. We appreciate you being here. And I also want to take a minute to thank our panelists. Without you, we wouldn't be able to do what we are doing. So thank you for being part of our community and helping our community. And Lester, great job, our team. So I want to be very grateful for everyone here who work behind the scenes to make it all happen. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Naren. So if anything Naren says tonight and your curiosity, whether it's about SEO, local search, or launching new services, go ahead and book your MSM session with the link that I mentioned earlier. This is your chance to see how your practice stacks up, where the biggest growth wins are. So with that said, let me introduce our speakers tonight. We have Dr. Michael Salzhauer with us, who will be joining us in a bit. He's not here at the moment. Until he joins, I will also give the room to welcome Dr. Johnny Franco, who is our second speaker tonight. Dr. Johnny Franco, please welcome to the panel. Thanks for being here. Can you take a moment to introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, I'm Dr. Johnny Franco here in Austin, Texas, board-certified plastic surgeon. And, over the last probably 3 or 4 years, we've grown from 3 employees to just under 90. We just hired our 4th plastic surgeon. We got 3 wellness providers, 5 injectors, an esthetician. And so definitely been a process over the time, and now expanded to 3 locations. So super excited to share a few tidbits, struggles, and hopefully maybe pick Chad and Michael's brain on some tidbits for them. Because I think one thing that's super important for all your listeners to hear is that the struggle's real. And I know you see people like Chad and Dr. Miami who are super successful, but if they think that they're not constantly working and the struggle doesn't evolve every day, they are sadly mistaken. So they're not alone in the struggle.
There we are. Hi, Dr. Michael Salzhauer.
Hello. How are you?
Good evening. I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. Thank you.
So we have Chad Sawyer joining in next. Chad, thank you for being with us tonight. Can you take a minute to tell us a bit about your background?
Yeah, so my name's Chad Sawyer. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Dr. Well. Basically, Dr. Well was started by another plastic surgeon, Dr. Jonathan Kaplan, and he had started doing weight loss in his practice. And one thing, really led to another where that became an increasingly bigger part of what he was doing. And so, um, as that grew, providers were asking, "Hey, how can I replicate some of that success?" And so Dr. Well created a platform to help providers grow their weight and wellness programs. And so uh, my job and responsibility is working with all the individual practices to help them either start and get up and running, or take what they have and big successful practices who are looking for maybe a different way to go about that and make it a little bit simpler on themselves. So um, like Dr. Franco said, it's a challenge, and especially with when you introduce medications and compound pharmacy and big pharmacy, there's always going to be things that are changing, and the way that we have to operate might look a little bit differently, but that doesn't mean there's not a path through. And we're always excited to look at, down the road, how do we keep doing this? Because patients are absolutely loving it, and they're way better off getting these meds from the providers on this webinar than anywhere else.
Thanks, Chad. Um, with that said, I will also like to give the room to welcome Dr. Michael Salzhauer. Dr. Michael, thank you for joining us tonight. Would you mind telling us a bit about yourself as well?
Sure. I'm a board certified plastic surgeon practicing in Miami, and on social media, they know me as the real Dr. Miami. I've been heavily involved in marketing and social media, since I started my practice, but certainly the last 10 years. Yeah, I'm happy to, give you my insights into how to grow practices and how to handle big practices, busy practices.
Perfect. So let's get started with our first segment, which focuses on one of the most important parts of your practice. That's how you attract, convert, and keep patients coming back. So we'll walk through lead generation, front desk strategy, upselling, team performance, and the mindset needed to succeed in sales. So let's kick things off with our first segment, where we'll dive into the core of building and scaling a successful plastic surgery practice. We're talking about the business systems, branding, marketing channels, and team strategies that can help practices grow efficiently without burnout. So Dr. Mike Salzhauer, let's start with you. And so one of the biggest challenges for any surgeon is finding the right structure early on. So Dr. Salzhauer, what are the most important business systems or processes a plastic surgeon should put in place early on to scale efficiently without burning out?
I can't speak about how to do it without burning out. That I don't know if you can do it without burning out. That part is you're gonna have to leave for somebody else to answer. How to scale, I think the main thing is that you need to be data driven and process driven. You have to create this. You have to actually sit down, take a weekend or two, and think about every aspect of your practice from a systems perspective, because if people are failing, it's because your systems are not thought through and made foolproof. So data wise, we have in our practice something I call vital signs, which we track every day, which is number of leads that are converted into appointments, number of appointments that show up, number of appointments that show up that are completed as consultations, and the number that book. And we also track the number that cancel. And so for me, those are the main data points I like to look at every single day. The problem is if you don't track the data, you could be driving your bus off a cliff and not realize it till it's too late. So when those numbers start to dip down, that even your system may be perfect, your sales process may be good, your drip campaigns are good, but maybe someone along the line had a sick day or is dropping the ball, or just like entropy in any system it kind of, you fix something and then it kind of falls off the rails again. But you need to recognize when things are falling off the rails as quickly as possible so you can go ahead and correct it. So for example, even like let's say you're tracking number of web visits or leads that come in. If those start to dip down, you want to know that within a day or two, so you can find out what's the problem. Is the website down? Is there a server issue? Did somebody mess with a form that's not working properly? if you let that go a week or two, that's going to affect your business at some point in the future. You'll have a bad week or two, and then you'll be behind the 8 ball. So I think being data driven is really, really important. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is you need to track your cancellations just as well as you can track your number of surgeries booked. And so at the end of each week, everybody on my team knows what our differential is. So if we book 20 surgeries and five canceled, we didn't book 20 surgeries. We booked 15 surgeries, right? To me, those are the most important numbers you need to track. And then, of course, you need to have a system in place to get good reviews and to follow up on your happy patients. And even more importantly, you need to have a system to follow up on your unhappy patients. So in our practice, we have something we call it the CUPS system, or continuously updated post-op surgery. One of the girls came up with the name. It's basically just a spreadsheet that makes sure that every single surgical patient gets a follow-up call, the day after surgery, 5 days, 7 days, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. Because the last thing you want is an unhappy patient out there that you don't know about. You're going to have unhappy patients. Even if you're 99% successful, you're going to have that 1%. If you do 500 surgeries, you're going to have 5 really unhappy patients. And that's a 99% success rate. You don't want those 5 unhappy patients. You don't want them not on your radar screen. You want to do everything that's possible to keep communication going, so they don't kind of go off the rails. It's those 5 patients that will make your life hell. And it's better to know about them than to not know about them. So in order to identify those patients, you need to have a system of some kind that's reaching out and calling every single patient. So that's the numbers you need to know, the systems you need to follow to make sure that you're not missing any we call them submarines that just kind of surface randomly 2 years later with their nipple pointing out like this, screaming on Yelp, how you're a terrible butcher and you ruined their life and they can never, whatever. Okay, let me think what other systems we have that are really important. Obviously, your marketing, when it comes to social media, again, you have to have a system, which means that you're consistently posting on all your platforms. I insist we do it every single day on every platform, at least once. It can be more than once, but at least once on every platform. And for me, the platforms are Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Telegram, which I really like Telegram. It's a smaller audience, but they're very engaged. And Facebook. Facebook and Instagram are basically the same thing. We just kind of post over there. If you ignore the thing about social media, the important thing about social media is that it's a two-way medium. They can interact with you and you can interact with them. It's much different than just putting out an ad on TV or in a magazine. And so you need to take advantage of that. When people are commenting or sending you DMs, you need to have somebody monitoring that so that you can, grab the ones that are good and put them into your funnel. And then the bottom of the funnel part, everything, mostly what we talked about is the top of the funnel. The bottom of the funnel is, how well your closing processes are. And that varies from practice to practice and coordinator to coordinator. All I can say is, incentivize them and be on top of them as much as you can. I have not yet reached the level in my practice where I can say it runs like a hospital. And what I mean by that is if you go to a hospital any day, anytime, 3:00 in the morning on a Thursday morning, and you need an x-ray, there'll be somebody there to give you an x-ray. There'll be some doctor to take you to surgery. And too often in practices, there are critical roles that are given to 1 or 2 people. If those 1 or 2 people are out that day or have a bad day or, are on vacation, then like the whole system suffers. You need to have in some ways interchangeable pieces. And there needs to be a manager that knows which pieces are missing and who can slot in to do those jobs, because it is a flywheel. And if you don't have somebody answering the phones, following up on the leads, going back to patients that I consult and ask them if they're ready to book, if that one person is out and that's their role, your whole practice is screwed if nobody's filling in that role that day. And that's not acceptable. That's not how real businesses run. You know, Elon Musk's businesses, Tesla runs 24/7. The factories run 24/7. There's always somebody there to do what needs to be done. And you have to think about your practice a little bit like that. If it means putting people in different time zones, having remote coordinators, we have remote coordinators from different places so that, theoretically 24/7, someone should be able to get back to you. I think I've spoken enough about my systems. What other questions do you guys have?
Mike, can I just echo one of the things that I thought is so critical for people listening is I have so many friends that they notice a problem when they're not busy and they have open days in their surgery. But the problem probably started 6 months ago. And it took 6 months to have the problem show up. It's going to take 6 months to course correct. And that ship has been off course for a long time.
Yeah. And someone's got to be the bus driver. That's what like we're doing our surgery, we're taking care of patients, we have 1,000 things going on, but you have to set the systems in place so that the data is being collected every day. Mm-hmm. And it's just like when you're a resident, it's not enough to order the lab. You got to check the lab, and then you got to see if their lab is low. You got to do something, give the potassium, whatever it is. So someone's got to look at the data, someone's got to analyze it, and someone's got to course correct as soon as possible so the bus driver doesn't drive the whole bus off the cliff.
The other point you mentioned that I thought is so critical, and I see so many people do this, is like we do the same as you. We have somebody, outside of Texas, so the hours are different. So we take phone calls until 8 p.m. We follow up with leads after hours because, 9 to 4 is easy and convenient banker hours, but that's when other people are busy. So they don't answer the phone. And so that's never made any sense to me. We have people on Saturdays. We post on weekends when people are actually on their phones in terms of things. So just because you're the surgeon and you want to be off on Friday or you want to be done at 3 o'clock, it doesn't mean that the system has to stop at that time. But I see so many places that do that, and they'll message or something, and they will call you back on Monday, and it's Thursday at 4 p.m. That person's gone.
Yeah, I don't know. I always assume those people were independently wealthy or something. I don't know. Doctors in Switzerland skiing, I'm like, okay, great. But then, who's running the ship back home? Who's making sure that when you get back from skiing that there's going to be patients for you to see?
I really appreciate you being here, Dr. Salazar, and of course, Dr. Franco. As the founder of the community, I run a company with 300 people. At the end of the day, it's a machine, right? Your business is a machine. And your job is to make sure the machine is running, like you said, 24/7, and it keeps improving. It's not like a stagnant machine because maybe 10 years ago, 9 to 4 worked, you know what I mean? But it doesn't work in 2025. Maybe 20 years ago, you could just not answer the phone call or not reply to somebody. Now it doesn't, right? Like expectations change. I mean, today with Uber is 7 minutes. People don't want to wait. Are they going to leave a voicemail and wait for you? It's not going to happen. So if you really, it's like they're not going to change for you. You have to change for them if you want to be a successful business owner. So,
and the DMs is an important point to the change, because to them, a DM is the same as calling the office or sending an email. So if you don't have somebody monitoring that is a wasted lead. The fact that they took the time to respond and ask questions. and I see so many of them like, who responds to your DMs? I'm like, oh, I check them once a week. It's like,
there's an app called ManyChat that you should download and implement if you know about it, but it will automatically respond to your DMs with information. You can also hook it up to ChatGPT and create a little GPT so that if they ask how much is a breast augmentation, it'll actually answer the question they're looking for. So try to use AI. We're trying to use AI as much as we can. It's a little bit of starts and stops, but it's important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Amazing discussion. I think that's a practical way to set the foundation, and I think it's something every practice, no matter the size, can take away from this discussion. So to the second question to Dr. Salzhauer. So now once the foundation is in place, the next challenge is standing out in a crowded aesthetic marketplace. In your view, how can a surgeon build a personal brand that truly differentiates them from competitors while still remaining authentic?
You said it. It's a personal, authentic brand. You be yourself. There's a patient. Every surgeon will appeal to a certain demographic of people, or certain, be yourself. You will attract. You'll attract the kind of people that you like to be with usually. Like I have a huge social media audience, and there are millions of people that look at my social media and say, I would never let that guy touch me with a 10-foot pole. Never. Like the guy's a clown. He's great. That's fine. There's another segment of the audience that's like, oh, he's so funny. I love him. Oh, he's so great. I see his, so you can't be afraid of turning off. If you're going to create a unique, profile, or you're going to be yourself, just be yourself. You're going to turn off some people, and you got to let your ego get bruised a little bit. It's fine. Chances are the people who you turn off, you probably wouldn't like them as patients anyway. You know what I mean? They don't get your humor. They don't get your style. They don't, they were offended by something you said. Okay. If you're yourself, that's fine. We have a saying here called, we let the garden weed itself. So, the other thing is when you're building your brand and you're thinking about, who you want to attract, you should really, sit down and think to yourself, who are the types of patients I like operating on the most? And what are the types of surgeries I like doing the most? What brings me the most joy, And if you think about that, and you think about the type of person, whatever it is, if it's a 32-year-old mother of 3 who lives in the suburbs, okay, so you target your marketing towards those people, chances are you'll start to get those people that you like, and your life will be happier and better. Okay. There's a flip side to that I would caution people. If you get too technical with your marketing, for example, if you spend half an hour describing the technical difficulties and ins and outs of breast augmentation or whatever operation you're trying to promote, you are going to lose most of your audience right away, because people don't have the patience to sit through that kind of lecture. Even if they're very interested, they still won't sit through. And the problem is that people that do sit through to the end of that lecture are probably not the kinds of patients you want to have, because they're like the engineering type minds that have a checklist and a notebook.
You didn't do step number 9.
And so I learned all this the hard way. You know what I mean? Trust me, I learned all this the hard way. But if you talk like an engineer, you're going to attract engineers, and they can be very hard to please. So just also think about the secondary effects of the personality that you're putting out there. That's it.
Mike, one of the advice you gave me when I had the opportunity to come visit you, and you told me, is that not to overthink it. Sometimes people want to be too perfect, and you're like, just post it. So what if you misstepped? So what if you misspoke one word? Like, you'll spend endless amounts of time, and you're like, just post it, just do it. It's you. And that was probably the greatest advice when I had the chance to visit you.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. Just post it.
I think for the audience, one of the ways I think about my business is, who do I want to be a hero to?
Oh,
so, so if I don't want to be a hero to somebody, I will even fire them. You know what I mean? I just don't want to waste my time. And it's not necessarily like, just the demographics. It could even be psychographics. Like you said, that engineering type who's going to question every single thing that you do and why not. And if that's your gig, then do it. But if it's not your gig, then don't do it. Right. So I think that really gives you clarity. Who do you want to be a hero to?
Yeah, great.
Really insightful, perfect discussion. So on to the next question to Dr. Salzhauer. So, of course, brand visibility comes down to the marketing decisions. Which marketing channels, social media, SEO, referrals, or partnerships are giving the best ROI for plastic surgery practices in 2025? And how should practices think about allocating their budgets?
The answer is it depends. The answer is it depends. It depends. I mean, it depends at the stage your practice is at. It depends on your social media following. And I've never really used ads on social media, so I don't know what the ROI is on those. I would imagine it's pretty strong, because they can really, if you pay them enough, they'll target just the exact demographic that you want. I would imagine that's probably the best bang for your buck. Any social media where they can pick out, okay, like I said before, 32-year-old mothers of 3 that have finished having children, and these social media companies have all that information. So if you can just target that sweet spot, I think that's probably going to be your best. I think probably the least is going to be, magazine ads and things like that are kind of, who knows who sees it or what the reaction is. How does SEO work these days? Is that even a thing? Do people use that?
I'll give you kind of a different perspective. I do run a marketing company.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you are a unicorn doctor. You have 1.4 million followers on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
So for every one of you, there are 1,000 people who don't even have 1/100th of your success you have on Instagram. I'm talking plastic surgeons.
Yes. Okay.
Right. And part of the problem is some people don't like to put themselves out there. Some people don't want to give it the time it deserves, like day in and day out, build a team just to do that. So what I find is when somebody leans into something they hate, they don't do a good job.
No.
I guess you love it. So, I mean, you enjoy it. You are yourself. You're not trying to pretend to be somebody you are not. You figured out your groove, and I bet it's overnight success, like you said, 10 years in the making. So
Yeah.
I think if you are in your group, in other words, 1 in 1,000 who can get to 100,000 followers or something, I would recommend organic social media, because you are like Oprah. Of course, if I have to choose between Oprah and a regular plastic surgeon, who am I going to go with, right? Like the famous, the one that is the one, right? So I do think it's great if you'll enjoy it and if you're willing to put the time and effort into it. But what I have found working with dozens and dozens of plastic surgeons, it's a very rare personality type. It's like 1 in 500, 1 in 1,000. They just don't like it. They like surgery. They like being behind the scenes. They are not, so I think for them, I think SEO can be powerful because people are looking for whatever they're looking for. Breast augmentation, all these keywords. And if you rank at the very top, and then once you rank, you can have good presentations, before and afters, videos, etc. So you can hook them. So there is that group of doctors. So I think you are right. It depends on the individual doctor and his personality type.
Don't you think
I agree. How does so SEO? It's been a long time since I thought about SEO, but how long does it take to build that? As opposed to just paying for like an ad on TikTok or an ad on Snapchat or something.
Yeah, that's a great question. See, SEO is hard. Just like 1% of social media influencers get 99% of traffic. Obviously, you are in that 1%. SEO, kind of the same thing. 5% get 95% of the free traffic, right? So getting to that 5% is hard. And typically a good metric is you're ranking for 100 or more keywords and phrases in the top 10 results. Usually the minute you start ranking for at least 100 keywords and phrases and you are in the top 10, that means you have arrived. And the reason is, if everybody gets free traffic, why would you pay money to Google, right? Same reason. If everybody got free traffic from Instagram, why would you pay money to Instagram, right? Same reason, right? So obviously they make it really hard and they keep changing their rules. In my experience, it takes 12 months and you're putting in at least 600 hours of work in terms of NAP and Lighthouse Code and all the technical mumbo jumbo that Google cares about. And you just keep at it. And again, the minute you take your pedal off, you will slip. Just like social media. Imagine you don't post for 3 months. You dry up. Like all of a sudden, your feed is gone and then you have to restart. Same thing here. So it's a big climb up front, just like with social media. And then once you're there, you have to maintain it. But if you do maintain it, you have an unfair advantage with the average person who depends on ads, right? In other words, ads people don't trust. So like there's going to be a lot of tire kickers, a lot of people no showing. And usually the cost of ads is at least 5 to 10 times more than organic, whether it's social media organic or Google organic.
I have a question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, don't you think though that SEO now leads into LLMO? So if you're a large language,
I was just going to ask that question.
Yes.
How does ChatGPT? How do you game the system so that when someone asks ChatGPT, who's the best surgeon in Austin, Texas?
Absolutely,
Dr. Franco. How's that?
100%. See, we focus on Google a lot, and Google is the largest player when it comes to people looking for information, right? 3 billion people use Google every day. In the US, pretty much the average person is using Google 10, 15 times a day to get answers. ChatGPT kind of got an early start, but Google has caught up. Now Google has something called AI Overview, So pretty much for most questions, like, I'm trying to figure out, my daughter has certain symptoms, and I'm putting it into Google, and it literally gives me this literally a one-page write-up on blah, 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 blah. Here is something you may want to consider, right? So it's incorporating what they call Google AI overview into every search. But there are two types of searches. There are searches where somebody's trying to learn something. And then there are searches where somebody's trying to look for some, plastic surgeon near me, or Botox in New Orleans. I'm just making this up, right? So if they're looking for something, Google will show you, okay, here are 10 people and who's number one, who's number two, and so forth. But if you're trying to learn something, Google will give you the AI overview. And again, you can game the system. What we are noticing is people who are ranking in page 1 or 2 usually are part of that story. So Google will reference those people and so forth. But still, AI overview is only like 1 to 2% of searches at the moment. It's growing. So good news, if you're looking for a local business, local solution, it's just still going to be like your results showing up. But if you are, like, for example, if you were to write a blog about XYZ, more than likely you will start showing up on AI overview. Now, ChatGPT and everybody else uses the similar idea when people are trying to learn something. I think ChatGPT is in trouble for two reasons. One is these guys have deep pockets, Facebook or Meta, as well as Google. They are putting 75 billion of where they make 150 billion in profit, right? So for those guys, it's nothing versus ChatGPT. It's losing money and they have to keep raising. So I think they're going to be in trouble, at least in the long term, I think.
I'll tell you what, though, I don't know how to optimize it, but I've actually gotten this month multiple people who have found Dr. Well strictly from ChatGPT searches. So they've started just asking questions, talking about whatever problems they've had. And we do a lot of content where we're putting out frequently asked questions and talking about some of the things that we do. And where people are finding our business, and I imagine it would be the same thing looking for a plastic surgeon, through ChatGPT, and that'll change as the Google AI and all the other platforms pick up. But it's fascinating in the information that they come to us with. They basically know everything about our platform and what we do. And talk about being able to not sell to an engineer. These people are already coming fully prepared with everything that they need to know, and it's crazy. It's interesting.
Can we go back to the ads thing? Because for the people listening that aren't Dr. Miami and really need to try and get themselves going, since we have a lot of providers, we're trying to get busy. I'll tell you one of the things that's challenging and just want to kind of word of caution is, you can spend a lot of money at ads, but Michael said this right at the very beginning. If you don't have a good system to funnel these leads, you're going to waste money endlessly. You're going to be mad at your marketing team. That lead came in, and I have so many friends that are spending this money on marketing stuff. They don't have a CRM. They're tracking them, maybe a spreadsheet, maybe a notepad like Michael has that has some things that maybe gets written down, maybe gets followed up. So somebody that's coming off an ad, just for people that are listening, that's not the same as someone who you've operated on their cousin, their mom, their sister. That person, you just don't have to mess up. People that come in from an ad, you really, have to answer quickly. You have to answer with confidence. You have to be educated with your response, and you have to be repetitive, so they're likely not going to answer on the first call. So you have to call, you have to follow up. You got to do your drip campaigns. You got to be educated about it, and then put them into your nurture campaign. So maybe they're not ready right then and there. And again, that depends on where the lead's coming from, right? Somebody on Google probably going to move a lot faster. Somebody on a Facebook ad and interest, you've really got to show them interest over time and get them into your newsletter, get them into your thing. So I think there's a lot bigger ecosystem there in terms of depending on what you want to do. I do have some strong feelings in terms of whether it's surgery, med spa, other stuff, which platforms are better. I think it probably varies a little bit from marketing, but some of it has to do with the cost per the procedure you're going to get, how good you are about capturing them, how good you are about rebooking them, whether the money can actually make sense. But I know that was a lot there, but just kind of some thoughts to make sure that you have a process in place if you're going to spend a lot of money on ads.
I'll give you some facts. So we track calls and we listen to calls. The average practice books less than 1 out of 3 new patient calls. It's a disaster. And if you talk to the owner doctor, they think their people walk on water.
90%.
They think they're amazing. But you listen to the phone call, people will strangle somebody. They get so upset. But the thing is, they don't know, right? Because nobody's tracking conversion rate. Like you said, usually most doctors will say, go to the front desk and say, how are we doing? Oh, we are doing great. Because in the mind of the front desk, everyone who didn't book is a crappy patient. But they called, they have money. Like, why are they a crappy patient? I don't get it, So that's the way doctors think, but that's not the way, the employees think. So I cannot agree with you more. It's still 2025. A lot of practices are like in stone ages when it comes to CRM training, and you hit it right on the head. Somebody who's referred is going to trust you the most. Someone who's finding you organically on Google, they're going to trust you. Someone who is finding someone like Michael with 1.4 million organically, they're going to trust him. But if it's an ad, they don't trust you because they know it's an ad, right? They know anybody can buy an ad. Now you have to, it's 5 times harder to convince them and 5 times longer. And if you don't have that machine that's fine-tuned, you could be blowing tens of thousands of dollars in ads. And by the time you do your math, and a lot of people don't even do the math. They don't even know how many new patients am I really getting for this marketing budget. So these are all excellent points. And I see the 1%, and then I see the 99%. Obviously, you two guys are in the 1%. So you guys play a totally different game. You know what I mean? But probably 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you were in the 99%. So you figured all of this stuff out. So it's not like it's rocket science and nobody else can do it. You can. Just have to keep leaning in on systems and metrics and all the things that we have covered so far. At least that's my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I think
Thank you.
another nugget that we've been playing with, I'd love to hear your thoughts, and then we can move on from ads, because I could talk about this all day, especially with Michael and Chad, about this. But is even some of the streaming, because think about that, right? Like there's still an opportunity there. If you think about those ad stuff. Now, unlike a TV ad, like Michael talked about the billboard or other stuff, it's kind of Ross. That's what it used to be if you were like on an NBC or something. But now with some of these streamings, you can do the same targeting. You have a different, type of video stuff that you can engage people in. And so I think that's super interesting. We've just started playing with it, but I don't know if you guys have experience or Chad, but
we're doing it. We're doing it right now. Actually, I think we're streaming on it's YouTube, Paramount, Peacock, and we're targeting to patients as well to try to help them find providers for weight loss. And it's crazy. It's the spend. You can go a lot. I found you can go pretty far. I think we've spent less than $500, and the number of impressions or households that we've been in is over 10,000. And so it's pretty fascinating. We're still tracking all the conversions, obviously, and metrics, and seeing what the ROI there is. But just from a brand awareness standpoint, it's tough to match that. And that's where all the, and they're very good at targeting. You can put in who you want to reach, which households or which types of people you want to see. And then you can pick the TV shows that you're streaming on, so it aligns with the types of people that you want to see. And it's a lot of fun to play around with that stuff. And it's actually working pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, some of our clients even have their own shows like on Netflix and some of those smaller networks, and many of these networks now are online, right? So it's not like the old days where it's like a literal TV network where you're sitting in front of a TV. Most people don't sit in front of TVs. So that's on the extreme where you could have your own show and you can brand yourself. And then we have like when it comes to streaming, especially YouTube, and like you're talking about ads, right? Where it's video ads, where it's like a 2-minute video, but it starts out as a 10-second clip, and then you can watch it as long as it's entertaining. People watch it. I agree. Marketing is about getting people to know you, like you, and trust you, and it takes sometimes 6 months before they know and like and trust you. Of course, depending on the product and depending on what you're doing. So I think you have to take that long-term approach. You need to have metrics. You need to track everything, and then you have to pick the winners and kill the losers. I'm being honest, right? Like you need to know what your ROI is. And at some point you have to say, okay, enough. I've put enough money into this. It's working or it's not working. And then if it's not working, don't keep putting money. But 90% of plastic surgeons, unfortunately, don't know their ROI. They don't know what is working and what is not. They don't do tracking. And even call conversion, like I said, they don't know. They don't know like what percentage of patients are booking and how many are canceling, all the things you guys talked about today.
What would you say is a good test run in terms of things? 3 months, 6 months? What would you say if you said, hey, I'm going to start running, Meta ads? and somebody listening, what would you say is a good time that you give it enough time to actually see if it works? Because 1 week is not enough time, but is past 6 months too long? What would you say is kind of a sweet spot?
Yeah, I mean, I think of everything like a pyramid. So some things are better than others. I mean, to me, if you're going to be there in business for a long time, you have to figure out marketing. The question is which marketing, right? If you have the patience, like you, Dr. Franco and Michael Salazar, and you're willing to play the long game, definitely I will lean into organic social media, knowing that it might be 3 years before it really starts helping me, or like a long time once you start getting into that 1% category who's going to get 99%. But if you don't have that personality type, I honestly think getting into the top 5% of SEO is good, because once you're there, you can maintain it. So getting there is hard. It will take a year, 600 hours. But once you're there, if the marketing company knows what they're doing, you can maintain that dominance, which means you will have an unfair advantage. Everybody else is spending 8 times as much to get the same outcome that you don't need to, right? Because people trust organic, just like they trust organic social media. Now, ads are hard. The challenge is because it's 8, 10 times more expensive. Usually you need to have deep pockets, and you need to have staying power. I see a lot of doctors don't have a finance background. So they're like, oh, I'll throw 10 grand, see what happens. It doesn't work. They give up, right? You can't do that. Like, you have to figure out your machine. You have to optimize your machine, and it takes time for you to do that. And by the time you get to optimizing your machine, people give up. It's kind of like you're digging for oil, but you're 2 feet from oil, you give up, right? So that's what I see happening a lot of times. And partly it's because doctors don't understand this game, nor do they spend time on this game. Both of you do spend time on it. You get into it, but the average doctor, they give it to somebody else and say, you figure it out. And they don't get into the science of it and the psychology of it. And so they can't even see if, they don't even know what the early signs are to know that if things are working or not, right? Usually there are leading indicators that'll tell you if things are moving the right direction. So I would say if you're going to go into ad, be very patient and get your hands dirty and have the money to I wish I can give you a straight answer, but some people spend $10,000 on your patient. Now, is it worth it? I mean, when everything is said and done, right? What I'm saying is when you take into account booking and cancellations and everything else, versus somebody else can get the same patient for $500. So where do you draw the line?
Exactly. I think that was a powerful start. That segment was a powerful start to today's discussion. We've covered everything from systems to branding, marketing, team building, and even the future of technology in plastic surgery. So a huge thank you to Dr. Salzhauer for setting the stage with so much clarity. And now that we covered the big picture systems, let's shift gears to look at what it really takes to build and scale a practice from the ground up. So our next segment is all about laying a strong foundation and making the right operational decisions early on and staying truly to your identity as your practice grows. So we're joined by Dr. Johnny Franco, who brings a wealth of experience in scaling successful practices while maintaining quality, patient trust, and team culture. So Dr. Franco, let's dive in. So when we think about growth, everything really starts with a foundation. So let me ask you, how did you build a strong foundation to support long-term practice growth?
I'll tell you, if I could go back in time, I would have done it differently. I don't think that I built a good operating system from the very beginning. When you first start out, you just are hoping a single patient walks through the door, and I definitely didn't spend enough time kind of writing out all my standing operating procedures, kind of making every step methodical. And we were fortunate to have kind of a big growth phase. And I sometimes compare it to a teenager that gets a growth phase in high school. You're like, they have the potential to be a good basketball player if their left foot would get out of the way of the right foot, And so sometimes you're a little bit clumsy, especially if you do well with social media or SEO, and you kind of get a big bump, and sometimes you can have this growth. So one of the things that it's honestly been over the last probably year and a half, it's been the biggest focus of our practice is actually every process that goes through the office, we've been scripting out every single thing. So, the call center, what is that script like? Our cancellations, what is that protocol? Refunds, what is that protocol? So that you could do anything and you go to it, and then there's basically a sheet that people have. And if we want to make changes, you date it. It has to be signed off by myself or one of the managers, that's been changed. We've implemented something, or we're working on something called Notion, which is an AI program where where you can actually upload them and then just search it, like cancellation policy, rescheduling. And that way it's super easy. And for the team, it's honestly better, right? Because they're never going to be in trouble or misspeak, right? Oh, if I'm rescheduling somebody, I can pull it in. Here's our policy. Here's exactly what's expected. Even for our marketing team, like here's the post that we expect every day. So we're gonna do 15 times on Instagram story, or whatever you're gonna do, 3 times on the feed, whatever you decide is right for your practice and business. At the end of the day, they filled out the sheet, they leave it on my desk, like here's all the things that we accomplished that day in that schedule. And even for us, making that calendar for the different providers, because like one of the things that I struggled with, and if Chad or Michael has any suggestion stuff, is we definitely had a good, strong social media presence, but then, if you're building that foundation, how do you expand it beyond yourself? So it's not just Johnny, right? It needs to be Dr. Weinfeld, it needs to be all the other people there. And so then now, one, you have to give up some of that time, but you're trying to keep this overall brand feeling while still getting, making everybody a little bit of a specialist. And for us, we personally have tried to give everybody some king of their own castle, and so something that they really hold on to. So one, it helps in the practice because they've taken that as like their baby and run with it, and then makes them feel. People didn't try and finish first in their class to be the third doctor in a practice. That's not a setup for long-term success in terms of that. One of the books for people listening that I started a couple of years ago, and we actually did it as a book club here in our office, was the book Traction. Which was great in terms of organization throughout the office. It was super interesting, even with some of the leadership team, to fill out goals and kind of where they saw the practice going. And we filled it out individually and then came back. And that was interesting to see where people thought the practice was headed, what their vision was, and kind of helped us make sure that we were all aligned with the same goals. And it's always funny sometimes when I give talks at different things and I go back and I look at what I filled out 3 years ago. I'm like, damn, we did pretty good on that one. I was way off on that other one. But definitely helps you kind of stay focused on that. And then kind of the last one in terms of foundation stuff, even for our marketing team, definitely a work in progress. One of the books that I love is Day Trading Attention by Gary Vee. And we did it. He has a worksheet, but I'm sure everybody on the platform here may not agree with everything he says, but at least gave us a starting point to go from, and then again gave us something, a foundation. Here's where we're going to work from, and trying to build that out. So kind of the long-winded story is we've basically built out a standard operating procedure that's still a work in progress. We're working through scripting every step. How do you set up a room for Botox? What's our protocol for discharge? What patients get sedation? What is the clearance? Like, we already know, the coordinators know, here's all the criteria for somebody to have surgery. This is the age they need these labs. This is what age they need an EKG, mammogram. It's scripted out for every spot. So making it easy. Chad, any thoughts? I know you guys have exploded with some things and challenges.
Yeah, I think from a social perspective, one of the things that we've done is, so Dr. Kaplan's kind of blown up on his own right with his own personal page. But we have this whole group of providers who kind of rely on us to help them get their programs going. And so we've been able to figure out kind of what works well on TikTok is the big one for us, and Instagram as well, but really TikTok. And so we do videos that feature our providers all the time. So we allow them to take some of the content that we've created or video topics or things that are trending, and maybe they don't really know what they're not a big social media person. They don't know exactly what to do, what to say. They don't know where to post. And so we really give them the ability to do that. And then because they're usually, also don't have these huge followings, it allows them to kind of tap into our algorithm of exposure, and then people are able to connect with them. And so just kind of one of the offhand benefits of creating content, and it helps us a lot too, is they can also grow their following and then become more and more comfortable with that, which they can then start to grow towards getting that organic traffic. And so that's been huge. I mean, we document everything. I mean, every single thing that we do on the software side. I mean, if you talk to anyone in Dr. Well, whether it's a salesperson, a support person, a customer success person, if you ask them a question, you're going to get the same response from every single person. You take them into a room and ask them, what's the Dr. Well value prop? You're going to get the same thing from every single person that you talk to. So it's super important just to stay consistent. And then because as you grow a practice, as you grow a platform, whatever it is, you're going to keep adding people in, and that level of expectation, you can't see everyone, right? So there's going to need to be people that come in and they have the same expectation. They should get the same result as if they were seeing you. And that's the same thing with us. When if you're doing a demo and you want to learn about Dr. Well, you better know everyone on our team better be able to tell you this is what this does and this is how you use it. And so the number of scripts that we have, we do a company retreat each year where we go in and we outline those goals and people talk about, and it's, everyone has the freedom to get up and say what they think about the business and where they want to see it go. And doesn't mean you act on everything, but getting that feedback and being able to see, where the team thinks about everything, it's huge. So you got to do that stuff. And it's a pain in the ass, especially when you're just getting up and running, just worry about keeping the lights on. But you got to do that. You got to do that stuff because down the road, it's going to come back to get you. So it sucks, but you got to do it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Naren, would you like to add anything to that?
I mean, I guess I've been an entrepreneur for 20 some years, 25 years. And I became an entrepreneur because I got fired 4 times in a row and I realized I couldn't work for somebody else. And the first 4 years, like I was messing up like daily. So I was making so many mistakes. And then finally you start figuring out the formula. One thing I'm learning, I guess, in the last few years is in every situation, there is something more important than something else. Like Steve Jobs called it the highest order bit. What is the highest order bit? Yes, there's 100 things to do, but if you do everything, but you don't do the first things first, Stephen Covey said it, right? It's second habit. First things first, you'll go in circles. So like knowing like, okay, in your customer experience, what is the first thing? For a particular employee, what is their first thing? So really having that clarity down to individual level and all the way up, I think is very powerful because it is tough. There's so much to do and it's never ending and you keep improving. So like continuing to figure out what's important, what's not at any given time. And that's kind of something that I admire Elon Musk. Like I heard he does 5-minute meetings and he starts at 7 a.m. and he goes till 10 p.m. So 180 meetings and he'll go to different teams and like, what's your most important thing? What's your biggest problem? And he'll help them solve it. And if it means making a phone call to the CEO of NVIDIA because they don't have enough chips, that's what he's doing. He doesn't care. He has no boundaries. He has no, this is the way it's supposed to work. It goes directly to the bottom. So I think in 2025, you need leaders who are hands-on, who can both go up and down, like in moments notice. They can go deep in details as well as scale up and see like the forest from the trees. It's just a muscle. You just have to practice it. I wish there's some school, you go and take a course and you become a master and you become like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk. It just doesn't happen that way, right? You just keep at it and, slowly but surely kind of grow in some of these areas as a business owner.
What's interesting about the 5-minute meetings is, we've actually cut all of our meetings in half and they have to have an agenda to do it. Even when we cut our hour meetings, we've made them 30 minutes, the 30s made them 15. We haven't lost anything. People just get to the point a lot faster, but you can eat up your day with, excuse my French, but bullshit, it's like, okay, get to the point, okay, here's the issue. Let's solve it. And people will expand or condense their issue to whatever time's allotted to them. And so that's been a huge time saver. And kind of like Chad, we have a very set schedule. Every Tuesday we meet with our leadership at 6:30 in the morning. Every Tuesday at 7 a.m. we have an all teams meeting that everybody zooms into, and so it's on schedule. We have a running agenda sheet of issues. That meeting gets sent out to everybody afterwards, so that everybody should be up to date with stuff. And so I think that's critically important.
Amazing, excellent discussion. So, of course, now once that foundation is there, the next step is making those day-to-day choices that either help or hinder growth. So, Dr. Franco, from your experience, what operational decisions early in your career help your practice scale efficiently?
Well, I think number one, you have to decide what is your end goal. And that's why I love the kind of the goal sheet for traction stuff. Maybe never because what is scaling or what does success mean to you, and not everybody, wants a practice of, 15 physicians and 20 locations and so forth. So if that's not your goal, then don't be making moves toward that, and so I think that's number one, and if you say, here's where my goal, then you can map out, create your roadmap. Because I'll tell you, and with 300 employees, I mean, I'm sure, and Dr. Wells is huge as well, is, it's really challenging. The more people you have, the more infrastructure you need. It was much easier when, I could cover, all the business costs, with a couple surgeries, and I didn't have to worry about it. I mean, it's hard because you're personally tied, and you honestly feel, and COVID did this to us, right? Now you feel responsible for 300 people, for 90 people for me. I mean, it's super challenging. So one, make sure that's something that you want. And then two, figure out what your goal is and what you want to work to, because I think scaling, I think, this whole private equity, I think it's become a hot term, but I don't know that that's what everybody wants. And so, don't do it just because it's the hot term now, because you're not going to love it. Michael said this a little bit at the beginning. I heard somebody quote, it's how do you build a business you don't hate, and if you're doing this because you think this is what you should be doing, but you don't love it, at some point, that's why people get burned out, because you just don't enjoy it anymore. You're doing stuff that you don't love. I think early on, so long-winded is number one, figure out what your end goal point is. Two, kind of create some baby steps so you can meet some mile markers along there. I think three is avoid the distractions, like the Matrix, where you talk about the lady in the red dress, it's easy to lose focus and kind of go off tangent, and you lost sight of your mission. I love what Chad said. Everybody in the business knows what the mission statement is, because they're all on task, and you're not chasing after every little shining star. And that, I think, can hinder the business, because you waste so much time on different things. And then I think, the other part of that is you do have to hire strategically. And so, sometimes people hire just because they have a problem. Just hiring for a problem without kind of having a real plan isn't helpful. I think if you hire strategically, and this is where mapping out, it is helpful. One of the things that we've tried to start implementing is when I hire like a higher position, if we're doing something like a CFO or CEO or chief marketing officer, I'll always ask them and come teach me something, because I want to upgrade at the position. So I want them to know more than me, and one of the things that we've started doing is we'll even, I don't want people to do things for me for free, but we'll hire them for a project and be like, hey, here's a working interview. We're going to pay you for this project, but this is what I want. This is the type of stuff we're going to ask you to do. And so that way, I feel like we're really into it, because whether it's another provider, whether it's a CEO, whether it's a chief market, it's like mini marriages. And if it doesn't work out, it is really a huge cost of the business. It's a time sink for the business. It honestly is emotionally draining for me. And that's super challenging.
Just one quick comment. I think we all need coaches. I have somebody who has done what I'm trying to do, times 4, right? So that's, and the second thing is, and one of the things he taught me is, you have to think fast and you have to think slow. There's a book literally called Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow. Read it. Wonderful book. Like hiring is a thinking slow, right? It's very consequential. You screw up, it could cost you 6 months. And all the pain and suffering that everybody else has to go through because you made that one wrong hire. So know the difference between where you think fast and where you think slow. So I think that's a lesson that I have been learning lately. Like I'm a fast thinker and I make dumb decisions and I'm like, oops, I should have done this slowly. So we have to figure out our weaknesses. And I agree with purpose also, right? We work with 500 doctors and like I have doctors who just have 3 people and love what they do and they do exceptionally high quality work. You read their Google reviews for 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars, and they're happy, right? Like there's one particular professor, at a university, like an Ivy League, and now he practices on his own as a plastic surgeon. That's what he likes. And he's very happy with the life and that's what he wants. So you have to start with the end in mind and then do the things you need to do to get there. So of course, for him, he didn't want to be a, Instagram person and posting and stuff. That's not his personality. So he does SEO. He has a tiny team. He gets big cases, does a set number of them. He's really happy, right? The amount of time he's spending versus what he gets out of it, both satisfaction and money, it works for him, So you have to start with that and then create a solution that works for you.
Exactly, exactly. Perfect discussion. So, and the final question for Dr. Franco. So, growth rarely goes exactly as planned. There's always bumps along the way. So, looking back, what were some unexpected challenges in scaling your practice? How did you address them?
I think Naren mentioned it. I think hiring has been the hardest part for us, especially, kind of more, I guess you would say, C-level positions. I think that's been super challenging. I also think, and probably won't get to it today, but also, as you expand, how do you keep that brand across all your spots? I mean, how do you do the Chick-fil-A, the McDonaldization of America? Like, how do you make sure that, they get like Chad said, no matter who they talk to, no matter what office they go to, it's the exact same experience. It honestly hurts me when people say, oh, I'd rather go to the Westlake office than the Burnett, because then I feel like they see a difference in one office versus the other, and I want them to be able to feel like they can pop in anywhere and they're going to get the same exact, great service, every time. And so I think that's been the two biggest challenges.
Just a quick comment. We are leaning heavily into AI. So one of the use cases for AI saves you time, right? Like you can have it write emails and do social media posts, etc., etc. It'll save you time. The other use case is you can increase your effectiveness. For example, every one of our sales calls, it's transcribed, and AI listens to them immediately within 2 minutes, and it'll tell you, you did this great, you didn't do this. So I heard this saying from someone, people respect what you inspect. AI is very good. You have to, of course, have engineers and programmers to do all of that and create version number 9, because version 1 will suck, where it will literally look for exactly what you want it to look for, and it'll grade people. And that can be very powerful. So one of the use cases for AI is to get to an A level and then maintain that A level. But of course, you need engineers and everybody else. I mean, this may not apply to a small plastic surgery practice. So I just want to know that the math won't work in terms of the cost of hiring these experts and whatnot. But as you scale, I think it might be something you may want to look into.
But with a lot of the internet based phone systems, even if you have a small practice, even just listening to a couple of calls, you get a feel for what's going on. And that's been super, super helpful from a coaching standpoint for our team.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Thank you, Naren, and thank you, Dr. Franco, again for sharing your journey from building a solid foundation to facing challenges head on. Your insights gave us a clear roadmap for sustainable and intentional growth. Now we are moving into one of the biggest make or break areas of plastic surgery practices, and that's marketing and visibility. It doesn't matter if you've been practicing for decades or just getting started. If patients can't find you, growth becomes nearly impossible. In this segment, we are going to unpack the most common marketing mistakes surgeons make, explore cost-effective ways to attract patients in today's competitive landscape, and talk about how to set up your practice for sustainable long-term growth. So let's dive in with Naren. Naren, let's start with something foundational. In today's competitive market, what's the number one marketing mistake you see plastic surgeons make, and how can they fix it?
The person who had a lot of influence when I was in my 20s was Michael Jordan. I studied in Chicago. I'm dating myself. I'm turning 50 this year. And he comes back and he wins 3 championships. And the secret to his success is not really him. It's his coach, Phil Jackson, because this is the guy who won 11 championships, 6 with Chicago and 5 with LA, right? And he's all about understanding what he calls the fundamentals. Once you know the fundamentals and you master it, people can't touch you. You have an unfair advantage. So what is marketing at a fundamental level? It is helping people find you, right? In other words, if they don't know you can help them to solve their problem, you're not even being considered. So that's step number 1. People have to find you when they are looking for something. And then helping them like you, because we don't do business with those we like. Those of you who want to learn, read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's a masterpiece. It's like, it should be a Bible for everyone in business. And then finally, they have to trust you, right? And trust, especially for plastic surgery, it's not simple. It's 2 months, 3 months of their pay for most people, and they're going under the knife, right? So things can go wrong. They may not get the thing they're looking for. Of course, we have seen, the horror stories and certain plastic surgery is going wrong in the media and so forth, right? So they have to really trust you. So how do you do that at scale versus you standing on the street and say, hey, I'm Mr. Plastic Surgeon. This is who I am. Know me, like me, trust me. It doesn't work, right? And if you do that, they won't trust you because they're like, if you have to stand on the street, they think you're not good enough in the first place, right? So it's kind of one of those catch-22s. It's kind of great marketing is marketing where you don't even realize it's happening to you. It's so subconscious and so behind the scenes. You don't know that you're being influenced to think a certain way and choose a certain provider. So that's marketing, helping people find you, like you, and trust you. So number one, if you want the basics, remember this and memorize this. Am I helping people find me? Am I helping them like me? And am I helping them trust me? So one of the ways, again, if you are willing to lean into social media and become an influencer, like Dr. Salazar or like Dr. Franco, I would say go down that road. It'll take some time. It'll take a lot of effort, not just you, but your team, but it will pay off. But it's not like it'll take at least 2 to 3 years before you become an influencer and you get into that 1% that's going to get, thousands of views. Remember, social media will show your content to somebody in Philippines, somebody in TikTok, somebody in, the other side of the country. People may not get on the plane to come see you because they're so far away. So that's just the way social media works. It's not localized, right? I'm talking about organic social media. So you need like big numbers before it becomes meaningful. If you are that type, if you are in that 1%, go do that. But if not, one of the ways to get people to like you is, or get people to find you is you show up. Like, for example, we have a client in Beverly Hills. He ranks for 600 keywords on page 1. We have a client in New York City, Manhattan. He ranks for like 750 keywords and phrases in the top 3, top 5, top 10 results on Google, and he's not paying a cent. So when people see you again and again, so I type in, facial rejuvenation or facelift or one of those keywords, this particular person shows up, right? Manhattan, the zip code, and so forth. So you want to make sure that people are finding you. So how you do it is fine. You can also use ads like we already touched on, but ads are more expensive and you have to really up-level your game because you have to do a lot of convincing. They don't trust you, right? So you really, really have to be patient. You have to it might take 6 months and you need CRM and you need all kinds of tech and processes to play that game. So I wouldn't start there unless you are sophisticated and unless you have a lot of money and you have really smart people like you talked about who know what they're doing, to convert all those people into sales. So I would really lean in either on SEO. I would lean in on organic social media where you become an influencer. I'll just do that and I'll get people to know me. And then once they know me, then I'm going to focus on getting them to like me. How do you get people to like me? Do tiny videos like, hey, I'm Dr. Smith. I'm so glad you're on my, page where, a breast implant page. Look at some of the work I have done, call my office. We would love to help you. Just making it something that I think Dr. Michael talked about, right? Don't talk jargon. Don't make it complicated. Just explain something as if a fifth grader can understand. Because they didn't go to medical school. They might be a genius in finance or genius in something else, but they don't know what you know. So you have to kind of talk in common man's language. So that's really key. And then finally, trust, Google reviews, testimonials, cases. Just keep building them. I see some doctors do amazing work, but they don't know how to showcase it. They don't take the pictures. They don't have a method and a process to do that. And then they might take the pictures, but they don't put it on the website. So you have to connect all the dots and make sure you're constantly creating stories where when somebody goes to, let's say, your page on, breast augmentation, they see so many cases and they see someone like them and the outcomes you have produced for them. So through that, they're imagining themselves creating that outcome. Remember, people are buying outcomes. They're not buying technical anything. They want the after, right? That's what they're paying money for. Instead of buying this nice car that makes me feel good, I'm getting this plastic surgery that's going to make me feel the same way. So that's what you have to remember. And once you know the basics, just keep doing those things. I know we talked about systems, we talked about metrics. So look at the right metrics, look at the right systems to keep repeating those things, day in and day out.
Exactly. So thank you, Naren. So again, now we've all seen the rising cost of bringing in new patients year after year. What are the most cost-effective ways practices can attract new patients right now?
The best is free, right? So organic social media where you become an influencer and you get 100,000 followers, that's the best. It takes a lot of time and effort in terms of till you get there. The next best is SEO where somebody else can do it for you, But like we said, it'll take at least a year. So if you're going to retire in a year, don't do it. But if you have like 3-5 years, try to get into that top 5% who are ranking for 95% of the, who's getting 95% of the free traffic, right? It's always, that's the way the world works. A few people have all the advantages, and the majority don't have any advantages. So get into that 5% who's ranking for 95, who's getting 95% of the free traffic from Google, or get into the 1% who's getting 99% of the free traffic from Instagram and TikTok, the influencers. So how do you get into the top 5%? How do you know you have arrived into the top 5% when it comes to SEO? You're ranking for 100 keywords on page 1, and you can use Google Analytics. It'll tell you what the keywords are, how many people typed it in, and what's your average position. So your average position must be 10 or lower, right? So you want to be on page 1. Usually 10 or lower means page 1. Now, you don't have to stop there. You can get into the top 0.1%. You can rank for 800 keywords. In my experience, it'll take at least a year. It'll take 600 hours worth of work before you are in that top 1% and ranking for 100 keywords. Now, once you get there, you can keep climbing, right? Like Dr. Salazar, I'm sure did not have 1.4 million Instagram followers 5 years ago, but he has it today. So he just keeps climbing, keeps working on it. So same way, you can do the same thing with SEO. Now, when it comes to ads, Google ads, they're typically 6 to 10 times more expensive. Again, ads gets more expensive over time because Google has to show more income and revenue to his shareholders. So an ad that used to cost, let's say $3, today costs, 3 years later, today costs $10, right? So things get more and more expensive with ads. And the second issue is 6 people who come through SEO is equal to 1 person through, 6 people who come through Google Ads is equal to 1 person through SEO. How do we know this? The average person coming through SEO spends 90 seconds on a web page. The average person coming from ads spends 15 seconds. So why is that? Because they clicked on an ad. So their question is, what's the catch? What's wrong with this? So one thing triggers them, the wrong color. They were looking for something. They can't find it quickly. They're out of there, right? Social media, the average person who comes from social media ads is only giving you 5 seconds. And the reason it's even worse than Google ads is, at least with Google ads, they were looking for, jawline surgery, or they were looking for something, and the ad was related to jawline surgery. So at least they're seeing some pictures about jawline surgery, right? Before and afters, for example. But with social media, they're watching whatever they're watching, right? The way social media works is the social media companies hack your brain. They find out what you like, and they'll keep showing you more of those videos. You are into Kim Kardashian or celebrities, you're going to get celebrity videos. You are into entrepreneurs, you're going to get entrepreneur videos, right? So all of a sudden, I'm watching a video from Steve Jobs and an ad pops up. I won't remember that ad because I'm engrossed by Steve Jobs video. So what happens is they go there and they're like, oh, no, I need to go back to my Steve Jobs video, and they go back, right? Because that's what they were into. So usually they'll come and they leave, they'll come and they bounce. I've had stories where without proper infrastructure, without a proper marketing person, CRM, a lot of people have tried social media ads, but it doesn't go anywhere because they're like, oh, I'm getting 30,000 people to my website through social media ads, but I didn't get a single sale. Why? They come and they bounce, they come and they bounce, they come and they bounce, right? They don't have the methodologies, the CRM, the nurturing, all those pieces to nurture these people and sell these people who are not sold yet. So I would say do ads as a last choice, or do ads once you have a solid team, like you have CRM, you have a chief marketing officer, you have very sophisticated people who know what they're doing with drip campaigns. If you don't, you're going to waste a lot of money, right? So that's my advice. So definitely ads is like for the advanced, marketer versus the one who doesn't know what they're doing. That's my experience. I mean, it can really burn a hole in your pocket if you don't.
Naren, for the people listening here, if they're trying to improve their SEO, well, what's something that they can do that's the best use to their time? Is it writing blogs? Is it doing YouTube videos? I know with AI now you can kind of make the most of all those, because like we do a podcast, we put it into Write Blogger. It gives us a blog that's actually sounds like me because it is me, but helps kind of. But what would you say would be the best use of their time to at least start making some moves forward?
Yeah, I wish I can give you a good answer that would help everyone, but unfortunately it doesn't exist. And the reason is, if they are a kind of a do-it-yourselfer, I would suggest they try to become like Dr. Michael or you and lean into social media. And the reason is, I've seen people who are like individuals who have created, large followings on social media. With SEO, there are 200 factors. There is NAP. So the way Google works is Google looks at 200 things organized in 6 buckets, and you have to get an A+ in every one of them. If not, it's like the haves and the have-nots. Think of it like the 2 guys who started Google were students at Stanford, right? They met when they were doing PhDs. Stanford rejects 20 people for every 1 person they let in, right? Who is in the 1%? You have an SAT of 1550, which is 99 percentile. You are probably the class valedictorian. You have done, world-changing things. You probably won a chess championship and you are a world champion. Like you have like in 5 categories, you are like A+, A+, A+. That's when you even get considered. Even with, say 1550 SAT scores, you might still not get into Stanford. So the way Google works is you have to do all of them well for you to start ranking. And Google doesn't want you ranking for 1 keyword or 2 keywords. Usually if you're going to rank, you're going to rank for everything. It's kind of like, so when you do all these things well, you tend to rank for like hundreds of keywords. But even if you don't do one of those things or 2 of those things well, and it has become so complicated where I don't think the average person, unless they are willing to spend 50, 100, 200 hours to keep up. Because Google keeps changing the goalposts too. They update their algorithms 10 times a day. So they have something called Google Lighthouse Score. That's a tool you can use to audit your website. And you may have gotten great Lighthouse Score page by page by page, and you hired a webmaster to fix all your issues. 2 months later, you get low Lighthouse scores. Why? Because Google changed its mind on what is good and what is bad. Partly they're doing it to make it better for the consumer, not you, the business owner, but for the consumer. Partly they're doing it because they need to keep kicking people out. So you would go and give them money for ads. I mean, it's free market capitalism, right? Like they want to, Google makes $400 billion, okay? In a year, $400 billion, right? If Google were a country, there are 150 countries whose GDPs are less than Google's annual revenue. They make a killing when it comes to this whole game they own. So they will keep trying to get you out. So my experience is you have to be in the top 5%. And so the way we do it is we have 15 teams. NAP team does NAP. Lighthouse team does Lighthouse. They brought in a new thing called CRUX, that's Chrome UX. So they have all these different things. Original content, another huge problem, right? If your content doesn't meet Google's guidelines, for example, if you use ChatGPT to write your content, you will get slammed. It has to be human written. It has to have so many words. It has, like this, all these rules Google comes up with. So you need like dedicated teams who are just doing that piece. One person can't do it all. So that's what we discovered. So I do think, there are other companies like ours that exist, not too many, maybe like 1 or 2 I know, like who can get people to rank for 100 or more keywords. So I do think you need a good partner if you want to dominate Google. We have made it affordable. So our clients pay around $12.50 a month for, in a town or a city. So we kind of, for $14.50 a month. So we have made it affordable for our doctors. But I do think you need a solid partner. Of course, you have to be on top of it. You have to monitor, are you ranking for keywords? How is your NAP? How's your Lighthouse? In other words, you have to manage your vendor. If you don't manage your vendor, things can go sideways.
Exactly. So, yeah. So Naren, so many surgeons excel in the operating room, but admit they struggle with marketing. What's the very first step they should take if they are feeling overwhelmed?
Yeah, I do think, find out where you stand. So have a come to Jesus moment, right? Figure out if you are going to be an influencer, like the 2 people we have, then lean in. No, it's going to take time and you can do it. It can be done, but usually it's 1%. Out of my 500 doctors, I can say it's like less than 4, right? So it is hard, but some people do it. They love it. They enjoy it. If you are not that, I would recommend, and if you're going to be in there for the long term, try to set a plan to dominate Google. So have somebody review your marketing. So we do what we call a marketing strategy meeting. So we spend 6 hours. We look at you, we look at your competition. We'll tell you which keywords you're ranking for, which ones you're not. And we'll tell you, how are you doing on NAP? All the things Google is looking at. How are you doing on Lighthouse Score? How are you doing on CRUX? How are you doing on quality backlinks? How are you doing on original content? How are you doing on Google reviews? That's the 6th thing. So if you're doing well in all these things, meaning you're getting an A+, you're going to crush it. If you're not doing well in all these things, you need to, figure out how to do well. And typically we also give you a roadmap on how to get an A for NAP, how to get an A for original content within a 12-month period. So we'll give you a report card and a roadmap. Once you have it, then you decide if SEO is right for you, and you can wait a year. If you can't wait a year, don't do it. So you have to have that long-term approach. Like 95% of our clients, they never leave us after the first year because, SEO is 10 times better than ads. So there's not even a comparison when it comes to ROI. But still, the other thing we do is we listen to calls and we tell them how they're converting calls, which is something really, really important. And we find some practices only booking 1 out of 5, 1 out of 7, 1 out of 10. And then we have some additional services like cold coaching and stuff, because some people need training, right? It's like you're hiring somebody who is not a salesperson, and they see their job as answering questions. They are not answering questions. They're selling, they're influencing, they are getting people to like and trust. So you need to train them. It's not their fault. It's just they don't know what they don't know. So you need that kind of support. I'm not saying everyone has struggles with that, but a lot of practices need some extra help when it comes to the call conversion piece. It just seems to be really hard for a lot of people.
Perfect way to tie this together. Thank you, Naren, for giving us both the immediate fixes and big picture strategy. And for anyone here who wants a personalized roadmap, you can actually book a free 60-minute marketing strategy meeting at businessofasthetics.org/MSM. It's tailored to your practice, helps you see exactly what steps to take for growth. So with that said, we are going to move into our final segment, which is going to be on the personal side of business growth. And let's shift gears into the topic that's becoming a huge focus in modern practices. That's weight and wellness programs. As more patients look for holistic solutions that go beyond traditional care, practices are trying to figure out how to scale these services while still keeping cost, compliance, and technology in check. To walk us through some of the biggest opportunities and challenges in this space, we're joined by Chad Sawyer. So Chad, let's start with the big picture. What are some of the biggest challenges you see practices face when it comes to growing their weight wellness programs?
The first challenge that I'm finding people having right now is getting information that might not be exactly the best information. And what I mean by that is people who have practice who have big, robust weight and wellness programs that are generating tons of monthly recurring revenue have decided to put a pause on that. And I don't think that that's something that really needs to happen. And the reason is you can find compound pharmacies right now who are able to produce alternate formulations of these medications, whether that's glycine, B12, you name the additive that can go into these medications. You need to vet those compound pharmacies, obviously. We've started seeing pharmacies that work with us. They produced a new medication, GLP-1 squared. And so there's all these new medications that are available. And so if you're someone who had a program that was doing well and information came in that said, hey, I have to stop, I don't think that's right. And I think there's there's people on here who are continuing to do weight loss at a very high level who can talk to you from their experience and maybe some of the things that they've continued to do with these shortage conversations. But that's the first part, is just being able to find a supplier and not have to go to one of these research labs where you're getting medications sent to you in bulk and pushing the envelope of whether or not that's correct. So that's the first part. And Dr. Frank, I don't know if you obviously have continued to do this at a level as high as anyone. Some of the things that maybe you guys have had to switch with or make changes to your program.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's some of the super important. This goes to kind of what Naren was talking about with Google switching all the time. We've seen a lot of changes, and I think that's where people get hurt, is they, whether it's SEO or compliance, is that you kind of get to a good spot and then you just put the cruise control on, and before you know it, you're still going 70 and the speed limit changed to 25, and you don't even know why you got pulled over. And so and I think we see this in all facets. It's hard to push, and it's hard to be on top of things all the time. And whether you're hiring a company like Naren's or someone like Chad to make sure that you're pushing forward, it's I think you constantly have to be trying to make strides, or it's easy to misstep and you don't even know that you misstepped.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Naren, would you like to add something? Yeah.
Just a quick question, Chad. Wellness was really big, a couple of years ago, right? When Ozempic came out and stuff. How is that? I mean, I'm talking about weight loss, pretty specifically. How is that today? I mean, you probably have industry stats and.
Yeah, you can do the numbers all day. I think it's continuing to grow. And now it's continuing to grow beyond weight loss, right? Weight loss, Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound, Manjaro, those were the big buzzwords. And it was really the first time that you know, these medication or people started now thinking about what can I do to maybe not, do surgery or non-surgical treatments to change my appearance, but other things that really increase our longevity. And so now what I'm seeing is weight loss is still the demand. I haven't seen a dip in that at all, but now it's the demand for other medications, things that are coming up that we hear every day, NAD plus, hormones. There's some other, things that go along with GLP-1s that, people might lose a little bit of hair. I mean, what do you have in your practice for hair loss supplementation? And so there's amazing medications out there that you can offer patients to help not only increase the practice revenue, but most importantly, improve patient outcomes. And so that's the biggest thing is now seeing not patients just on one medication from our practices, but now they're on 3, 4, 5 different things. And they're creating these regimens that really help them get to where they want to go.
Well, and to your point, I mean, I keep hearing from other plastic surgeons or aesthetic providers that this is going to go away. AbbVie just spent $2 billion on a licensing agreement, with the company out of Denmark. They're already filming, have plans built for when this launches, 4 years from now. So if you think this is going away, you've lost your mind. They've invested billions and billions, and they have and now you have this huge titan in the aesthetic industry that is really leaning into this. You think they're not going to push this more in? I also think you have a lot of points where you can be part of this because, if you're not talking about it, I truly think there are some uniqueness and goes to educating and getting people to trust you. I shouldn't say nobody. There's very few people there, the Ozempic butt, the Ozempic face experts, for these 20, 30-year-olds with weight loss stuff. So again, if you're looking for a niche to really educate people, build trust for them to find you. For us, when we look at those search volumes, they're straight up every month for us. And so I think there's a huge opportunity to get in a space rather than, being a startup plastic surgeon and then trying to go to Beverly Hills and become the facelift guy. I think that's going to be challenging. You can do it. I'm not taking away anybody's dream, but you're going to have to work. So I think there's lots of opportunities to be involved in this.
Exactly.
Well, even when you look at the trending social media topics, and we're talking about you can organically rank on Google, or if you're not going to do that and you're more a do-it-yourself kind of person, like Naren said, he's recommending organic social. If you look at how can you get traction on social, I mean, the videos that we do that are around Ozempic and these other things, or people, other people who are doing things with these medications, those videos go viral consistently. And it's a great way to kind of either grow that niche, but also just grow your following. And then you continue to mix in other posts about what you're doing on the surgical side. They start to see that. They start to interact with you. And there's studies out there right now that show, there's a McKinsey study, 63% of patients who are getting weight loss medications from a med spa or a plastic surgery clinic would never have considered going into a med spa or a plastic surgery clinic. 63% of patients. That's a huge number of people. And you want to talk about how can you promote all the other stuff that you're doing? It's getting them on for that. And then they start losing weight. They see the transition in their face, their body. Who has that? You've already built up the rapport with these patients. And that's where you can utilize this. So it's really the first marketing opportunity that I've seen that gets you paid along the way.
I agree with you, Chad. I'm also noticing out of my 500 clients, we have maybe 50 med spa clients, and many of them are becoming, let me call it full service. They started with the aesthetics only, and they're into weight loss, they're into hormone therapy. And I think because customers are demanding it, stem cells. So I think if they have choose between somebody who can do more than one thing versus somebody who only does one thing, they're going to the one who has a more, a bigger array of menu of services.
Yeah. Well, it's why the Hims and Hers of the world have, become so popular. Millions of people have gone to them because they can get it easily and they can get whatever it is that they need. There's no reason that well-trained medical professionals like everyone on this call shouldn't be doing those same things. They're way better off getting medications from a Dr. Franco or a Dr. Miami or anyone else who's attending tonight than they are going online. And who knows who's on the other end of that call.
Exactly, exactly. So, let's talk about the role of technology. So, virtual and asynchronous consultations are reshaping how care is delivered across the board. So, Chad, how does technology like asynchronous consultations change the way practices can deliver care efficiently?
Yeah, so I think probably the best place to start with this answer is explain what is an asynchronous consultation, because there's a lot of people that this is new for. Uh, an asynchronous consultation is essentially a really detailed patient questionnaire that you can put within your website, even or your social media, and actually allow patients on their own time to go online and fill out their intake, their medical history, their goals, their medications of interest. And a provider is able to review that on the back end and actually approve patients. So if you look at, and I just talked about the hims and hers, and you think to yourself, well, how are they able to see all these patients and convert people so quickly? They're using these asynchronous consultations. And so in 32 states, the standard of care can be met just simply by reviewing a patient questionnaire. That doesn't mean it works for everyone, but you have all these people, and take myself as an example, right? I'm on a webinar tonight until 9 o'clock Eastern time. I was on calls all day. The time that I'm going to have to do something for myself is going to be between 9 and midnight. And if I'm going on to try to make something happen and you don't have a solution for me where I can get access to your practice, I can't answer questions, and you're going to try to have me schedule a time to come in and see you and you're booked out because you're so busy doing other things, I'm probably going to go somewhere else. And so these asynchronous consultations are really an opportunity for you to arm yourself with the same technology that these publicly traded direct consumer companies, the Hims and Hers, Rows of the world, have proven that that's how patients want to receive these medications. What constantly comes up with these companies and what you can read on Reddit forums and on social media is that the continuity of care gap is huge. There's no follow up. There's mismanaging doses. There's no help for side effects. And so if you're able to have the same intake as a direct consumer platform, but do that as a provider, then you're going to be able to open yourself up to a lot more patients. And I think the thing that I'm always encouraging people, especially when they're just getting into weight and wellness, is these medications work. There's a reason they're popular. It's because 90+% of patients go on it, they lose weight, they feel great, and they really don't need a ton of hand holding. So if you can get yourself to a place as a provider where you feel comfortable just going over basic information, you can see a lot of patients and do a lot of good in your community, getting people the medication and help that they need.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, excellent. I think that really shows how technology isn't just about efficiency, it's about scaling impact. So the next question, so one area that can make or break a program is compliance. So billing and regulatory requirements are constant pain points for practices. So Chad, what does it take to look like when those processes are automated, and why does it matter for patient and business outcomes?
Yeah, so there's two things that when we talk about billing with practices that we're looking at, and the first part, I'm not going to name any names of other platforms out there, but the first part, when you start dealing with medications, especially if you start shipping medications to patients' homes, you have to align yourself with a high risk payment processor. And so if you're processing payments through a system that's not categorized as a high risk, you're actually putting yourself where there's an opportunity where if a patient filed a chargeback for semaglutide, say it didn't show up on time or they didn't like it, and patients are going to do what patients do sometimes and just file a chargeback, and your payment processor sees that, you have the opportunity. There's a chance that they're going to do an audit on your entire business and see that you're doing medications and call you the next day and say, "Hey, we're going to put you on hold." As an example, Dr. Kaplan, who CEO of Dr. Well, he's a plastic surgeon. He takes online payments through his EMR for plastic surgery consults. He got a message and said, "Hey, we're going to have to shut you down. We're not going to accept payments through your platform anymore." He is using a high risk processor for almost everything, so he's fine. But there are businesses that essentially have no opportunity to collect money. And then you have to go find a new payment processor and rearrange all your systems. So the first part is, if you're going to do medications, obviously making sure that you're aligned with a high risk payment processor. And then the second part, when it comes to automation, is these medications they're very different from Botox or other non-surgical treatments where you might have a patient on a monthly membership, and it doesn't really matter what day you bill them on. If you bill them on the 1st, you bill them on the 15th, they're going to come in, they're going to not come in. It doesn't really matter because it's not going to affect their outcome. But when you look at medications, now these are very specific time frames that patients are going to go through the medication that they're getting. So if you take a GLP-1, you're really looking at a 28-day cycle. And so if you only are billing patients once a month on that first of every month, there's a disconnect between the medication that the patient's receiving, what you're sending, and what you're ordering. The pharmacist is going to bill you for it, regardless of if the patient pays you or not. And so having a system in place that actually looks at the medication that you're going to be sending in the program that you're following and aligning those two things is going to eliminate the need for these long spreadsheets of contact information and trying to figure out who's on what dose, what date do we need to order from, sending out an invoice, hoping they pay, ordering. It can be a big mess. And so having automation is going to save you a lot of headache.
Exactly. So with that said, so another hurdle for many patients is cost, especially with medication. So Chad, medication cost can be a barrier for patients. How are practices approaching partnerships with compounding pharmacies to make care more accessible?
Well, there's a couple. Obviously, we now have, and the price keeps going up with NovoCare and Lilly Direct. These, a couple months ago, they came out and made it seem like this was going to be the greatest thing for patients, and it's turned out shockingly not anywhere close to being a seamless experience for patients, and the price continues to go back up. And so when you look at being able to compete as a practice, because again, one of the things that we see is, well, how do I compete with the direct consumer platforms? How do I compete with, the thing that you have that they don't is real relationships, continuity of care. And so if you can go find competitive, you still have to be competitive on pricing. I think the days of getting $1,000 a month for semaglutide might be behind us, but finding a group organization where you can get in, go to a compound pharmacy, get competitive rates so that you have that flexibility to be able to offer rates that keep making it worthwhile for you to do it, but also staying competitive so that you're not pricing yourself out of the market. And so there are opportunities where you can go in and get really good costs of medication without having to, resort to going to a research facility and doing things like that.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thanks, Chad. So finally, let's look ahead. The weight and wellness landscape is changing quickly, and technology continues to play a bigger role every year. Chad, how do you see weight and wellness programs evolving over the next few years, and what role and technology play in that shift?
I think we're already seeing it, and we talked a little bit about it's more medications, right? There's this term that I keep hearing from people, and it's always been big in the wellness community, but now that more and more people it's stacking, right? So it's taking that semaglutide and that tirzepatide as the thing that is going to be your gateway. It's relatively easy to find someone who wants to go on a GLP-1, but it's what are you offering beyond that that's going to keep them in your program longer, that's going to help them get a better outcome. So I think the things that are becoming more popular. I mean, even just the other week, I forget exactly who it was, but someone got a picture taken of them doing methylene blue, and now hundreds and thousands of patients are asking for methylene blue, and there's all tremendous benefits with that. NAD Plus had its own little craze. So it's making sure that you're staying up with whatever's next beyond GLP-1s and creating programs in your practice that make sense and having a plan and making sure that everyone if you're going to add multiple medications, making sure that everyone in the practice is aware of what those medications are, what they do, how they benefit. Because if Dr. Franco decides, hey, I'm going to bring in these 10 medications, and his NPs or his PAs or his front desk don't know what any of them are, then he's not going to sell anything. And so making sure that everyone understands where these medications play a part. And then I think on the technology side, just continuing to make it easy for people to access these meds is going to be important, because you got to look at it as, when it comes to wellness, your competition is not the people on this call. It's the people who are running $20 million in marketing advertisements for Ozempic and tirzepatide and all the terms that you want to get patients for that you're blocked by. You can't even promote because you don't have your own legit script certification, and you have to go through a 6-month process just to get that.
It's a pain in the ass.
It's we did it, and we did it for 300 providers. It was our chief marketing officer is the worst 12 months of his life. I mean, it is constantly, every single thing is we need to do this, we need to get that, we need to do this, just so you can run a paid campaign on semaglutide without even knowing what's going to work. Right? So you got to find ways to make yourself available, take the opportunities, and then figure out what the right mix for your practice is. I think when it comes to wellness, that's the key.
Exactly. Dr. Franco, would you like to add anything into this segment?
I think the only thing I would say is that 100% agree with Chad. I think there's so many opportunities. Hormones has exploded for us, so I think you got to see it more than just the weight loss medications. I also think that there's a lot of places to be involved in this wellness space, and I think wellness is going to explode. It's if you go back, 10, 15 years ago at plastic surgery meetings, it's like, why are we talking about lasers? Why are we talking about med spas? And I feel like now it's the same thing with wellness, and you're going to miss some of the boat in terms of that. But you don't necessarily have to offer the GLP medications in your office. I think there's a lot of ways to be part of that. I think there's some ways to dip your toe and get into it. I would pick one or two things, and Chad obviously is at that 1%er like Naren was talking about in terms of all the things they do. So don't let that overwhelm you. You can start with one little small, whether it's hormones, whether it's the GLPs, and then build up as you get your system up. Or you can partner with people. That they have a good program that makes it a little bit more turnkey and easy, just like Naren talked about from an SEO. I think it's going to be very, very challenging to be a do-it-yourselfer and be number one in 600 things unless like you're just superhuman smart and endless amount of times and no other hobbies or pastimes.
Yeah, I think you have to partner with the right people. So go slow. We talked about thinking fast and think slow. Go slow, find the right partner, and then figure out what are the keys to success and keep paying attention to it. Like one of the things is once you find the right partner, you still have to be, you have to be the CEO, meaning here are the three things I think the first thing that Dr. Michael talked about is what he called the vitals, right? What are the vitals for this relationship? So every relationship, what are the vitals? Make sure you're paying attention to the vitals every 3 months or something, and you'll do fine. So you don't need to, be a Superman and not have a life. You can like work with other people who are, I think you said it right, Dr. Franco. You said you are looking to hire people who know more about a particular topic than you do. Because if you know more, then why you need them in the first place, right? So you need experts. So I think that approach makes a ton of sense. Oh, I had a question for you, Dr. Franco, with regards to this whole weight loss and wellness and so forth. I'm sorry, my screen is frozen. I'll fix it in a minute. I guess, I know you made a comment, right? A lot of plastic surgeons poo-pooed, aesthetics and med spas and non-surgical, like maybe 10 years ago. And now, of course, that's not the case anymore. Like, how do you see this as a successful plastic surgeon? How do you see, medications, which is not even like a laser, not even a device, right? How do you see that in the whole mix of services that you provide?
Oh, I mean, I think, and Chad alluded to it, you're going to see this explosion. I mean, right now there's something like, and my numbers probably out, my stats are probably out of date, but something like 116 medications or so in clinical trials that are actually in a true clinical trial, like moving along. There's some that are muscle protecting. You're definitely going to see this big world of like designer stacking where, what are your goals? Are you just trying to lose as much weight as possible? Are you trying to preserve muscle, or do you have, glucose issues? I mean, and putting all these things, I recently did a couple weeks stint of having a continuous glucose monitor. I'm, fortunately, knock on wood, not diabetic, but it was super interesting even with that to see kind of swings and how I was feeling throughout the day. And I made some little changes. And this is where, gosh, I think we're only scratching the surface. There's so many cool things on the horizon. I mean, and you're going to see some of these things just explode.
Exactly. Perfect discussion. So for the audience, if you have any questions for any of our speakers, please drop it in the chat now. We'll try to get through as many as possible in the time we have left. Feel free to direct your questions to a specific speaker, or if you like to keep it open, we'll make sure the right person answers. So also a big thank you to Chad for sharing so much valuable insights. You've given us a clear picture of both the opportunities and the challenges practices face in growing their weight and wellness programs, from technology and automation to patient accessibility and the future of wellness care. You really highlighted how practices can stay ahead of the curve. We appreciate your time and expertise in guiding us through this important conversation. So, yeah, before we wrap it up, I would like to basically have a reflection point for our audience, and that is, if there's one advice or one thing that the audience could take away from this conversation tonight, what would that be? So I would love to basically give Dr. Franco the first advice. What would that be?
I think first tidbit is figure out what your end goal is, because I think that'll help guide you. I think the tip I learned from Michael with social media and organic stuff, you don't have to have a massive following for it to be impactful. Nowadays, even with like friend reviews, if I'm like, hey, Chad's great, or his program's great, what are they going to do? They're going to look it up on Instagram or TikTok. So if he doesn't at least even have a platform, you've missed this opportunity. Just find a way to get started. People tend to overthink it, and then they get so self-absorbed, like, oh, I misstepped, I'm not this, I'm not that, and they get in their own way. So I think, one, just get started. Two, don't overthink it. Figure out a goal, and definitely map out where you want to be, because I think that's going to make life a lot easier as you're building your structure.
Thank you, Dr. Franco. What about you, Naren?
Yeah, I mean, I learned a lot from the panel today. I mean, we had some really heavy hitters, so really appreciate all of you, for being here and, sharing your wisdom. I learned a ton, and I love learning about, people and business and what works and what doesn't. So thank you for that. I think given my 25 years is in marketing, at least 18 years has been 100% in marketing. Just remember what marketing is: helping people find you, like you, and trust you. What are you doing to help people find you? Make sure you're getting a good ROI on that, right? And again, people who come through ads, if you're not ready, then I wouldn't dip into that yet in terms of, CRM and sophisticated drip campaigns and all the other stuff, because it is going to be the hardest to convert and it's the most expensive. So you have to be really good before you dip into that. So I would lean into organic social media for people who want to do it yourself, or if you are willing to partner with somebody, and I made our pricing pretty open. It's $14.50 a month. So we do it all. We spend 30 plus hours a month, and you don't nickel and dime. It's all inclusive. So that's kind of what we do on the SEO side. I'll find somebody else. There's Aetna. I think they charge around $5,000, but they're also really good. So you find a company that can do SEO really, really well, and partner with them, and then hold them accountable. Now, Aetna, I understand, will ask for a 5-year contract. I don't know. I just heard from other people. I'm not sure. We asked for a 12-month commitment because we know within 12 months our clients can get into the top 5%. So that's on the helping people find you. Then work on the before and afters. Work on Google reviews. That's where work on those short videos. Those are really, really, we have systems for those and methodologies for those, because you want to get people to also like and trust you once they go to the landing page. And finally, you need to have know what your call conversion rate is. Are you converting? Again, I've seen practices, and a lot of times doctors are clueless till we pointed out to them they're only booking 1 out of 3 new patients. I'm not saying it's happening to you, but you need to know your call conversion rate. If you don't know, you're like, in 2025, you're like, blind. So, and then finally, treat it like a business, right? If you're spending money on 5 different ways of marketing and getting patients, figure out what's the cost of a patient from each method, and do more of the thing that costs you less and less of the thing that's costing you more. Marketing, in my mind, is essential for you to be successful. So lean in, take a long-term approach, find out the keys, the fundamentals, and then get good at it. That's kind of my 2 cents.
Thank you, Naren. And what about you, Chad?
Yeah, I think the thing I would say, if you're thinking about, weight and wellness, and is this for me, is this not for me, or if you're doing it, why should you put more time into it, is think about yourself, right? The life of a surgeon it's a hard life, and the money is constantly tied to your hands. And so I think this is really the first time that you can create a program that allows you to maybe free yourself up a little bit. And if that's something that you want in life, to where you want to avoid burnout, but you don't want to let the revenue drop in the practice, these medications, patients can do most of this stuff on their own. And so if you're looking to maybe change up some of the ways that you have to spend your day to make sure that your practice continues to grow and get to a place that you want to go, this can be a great opportunity for you. So, yeah. And if you don't know where to start, I mean, we do work with practices to kind of help them get going down the right direction with these medications, try to make it easy for you so that you don't have to hire another full-time person or get a second full-time job, right? The idea here is to bring something in the practice that makes a difference, that allows you to maybe spend more time out of the office.
Thank you,
Chad,
Chad.
can you give us your website so people?
Yeah,
If you can put it on
our
chat.
so I'll put it in the chat. You can check us out. It's drwell.com. You can see some of this, all the medications that we find that are trending. So it's a lot of it's actually patient facing. So it's great education for you to go see what are things that you can do, what can you start, what are patients asking about. And so I'd encourage you guys to go check that out if it's the first time that you've really thought about weight and wellness, or maybe you're going and you want to add one or two things. I think that's a good point by Dr. Franco. You don't have to do it all at once, but just start getting that thought process going. So if anyone has questions or has trouble with their compound pharmacies or anything, I'm always available to help you guys out in any way I can.
And that's
So
what
Chad, real
guys do
quick.
You take a lot of the legwork out, because that's what people don't want to do, is like, how do I know if this is a good compound pharmacy? How do I know if I'm getting a good price? How do I know if, they're legitimate or not? And you guys help with all that stuff in terms of things.
Yeah,
Just
we do.
real quick, Chad, because I'm not as familiar with your brand.
Yeah, please.
Is it more of an affiliate model or a franchise model? Like, can you give us,
No,
if I'm a provider, like
it's
how do you work with them? Like,
so we work with practices in the same way that you would work with your EMR. So we're big believers in that this is a relationship between the provider and your patients. We just know that the technology that doesn't exist in some systems, and I have a strong background in software and spent a lot of time with EMR and trying to give practices that opportunity to compete with these big direct consumer platforms, because I think we all agree it's wrong that these people who don't really care about the outcomes are the ones collecting all the patients. And so we're just trying to give people the opportunity to take advantage of the opportunity amongst their own patients, get great outcomes, and again, make it easy so that you don't have to spend the next 6 months of your life developing a protocol to figure out how to get semaglutide and tirzepatide into your patient's hands.
Before we wrap up, let's take a moment to basically reflect on what we've covered tonight. We've explored what it really takes to scale a modern plastic surgery practice, from building a strong business systems and teams to defining your brand, optimizing operations, and leveraging technology for growth. Like Naren said, here's the truth: none of that works unless your practice stands out in today's crowded marketplace. So if patients can't clearly see your value and find you where they are looking, growth becomes an uphill battle. So that's why we want to leave you with something of real value, practical strategies you can put into action right away to strengthen your visibility, your operations, and ultimately your bottom line. So as a thank you for joining us, Equa Marketing is offering you a complimentary 60 minutes practice growth session, customized just for your practice. You'll meet with Lila Stone, a senior advisor who's helped hundreds of aesthetic business practice owners improve their visibility, SEO rankings, and patient flow. Again, this isn't just a call. Lila will actually review your online presence and local competition before the call, and then walk away through what's working and what's holding you back, and basically give you a custom roadmap just for your practice. So you can scan the QR code or visit the link just to book that session. Here's something extra. Again, the first 8 people, it's all priority booking. So I would advise, if you are looking to book the session, go ahead and take that opportunity. So Equa clients rank for hundreds of keywords in top 10 search results, and this call is just your chance to find out how they do it. So ask yourself, you might be having the question, are people finding you in your city when they're looking online? Are they choosing you when they do? And is your practice working while your clinic is closed? So this session helps you answer those questions and gives you a plan to fix what's missing. And with that said, our time has come to an end. A huge thank you to our panelists, Dr. Michael Salzhauer, Dr. Johnny Franco, Naren Arulrajah, and Chad Sawyer. You all were amazing. You shared so much insight, amazing best practices, and wonderful actionable content. If I were to sum it up, I'd say collectively you made the complex simple, the hidden visible, and the difficult easy. Secondly, thank you to all of our attendees for the privilege of your time and participation. Without you, we don't grow together. Without you, we don't set each other up for success. So a reminder to like and share and review us on your favorite social media, and stay connected with our panelists if you like a deeper conversation like this. So until next time, on behalf of our panelists, keep striving for excellence and exceptional patient care. Thank you again for being with us tonight. We'll see you at the next Business of Aesthetics Summit. Until then, take care and good night.